want to show you, let's see. So we are recording. Okay. All right. So first off, I'll just show you that there is a new version of the song that's done, and we're just going to go over that because it's a writing assignment that will continue on. So I will share screen and we'll go to my desktop. And so there is an assignment to watch a video, and it already has a couple of views, so maybe you already did that, but here is the finished version of where you guys should be at with your writing. You've gone in and part written everything right there, okay? And this is up on the website in Canvas. There's an assignment. Let's see if I can go there. Assignments. Watch the video. Yeah, there it is. Where it says, you know, download that file. It's basically me having done the basic write, and then watch this video. And this video is about 26 minutes long, and I have no problem if you 1.5 it or 2.0 it, as long as you stop and make sure you understand the important parts. You know, you can also just rewind it and stuff. Where I say, look, we've done, we did the writing, and now there's some problem spots between measures 4 and 5 and was it 12, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then, you know, what do we do on the second half? And not only do I just say, here are the answers, but I go through like it linearly. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm noticing this. And it's starting to introduce you to some part writing errors that we're checking for and principles, which is what we're going to get into today. So there's that. Okay. So, but if you go one step further after that, then for today, you were supposed to have also downloaded this right here, which is the first part here is post video. In other words, it reflects the changes that I made in the video. And then there's 2 new pages that have basically 16 more measures 3 times, 3 different writing exercises. And so we will start quickly and look at this, and then we'll come back to it at the end so that it's framed with the new information you have from today's class. So this is a rough draft of the melody for the bridge or the B part of the song. So it's and then right here on the second line, or sorry. And that takes us back to the beginning again. And just like the other one that we did, the first part, you know, everything is editable, meaning that it's possible we might get to measure, well, right here, the A minor chord before this run back up and get to the ya da 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 or something like that. Da 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 to there, and then jump back and go ya da 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 ya da 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 da, and do it again twice. We don't know. We're at that place where I want to show you that you rough sketch stuff in quickly, and you make sure it works within its own context, but you're also understand that it's material that can be edited, very much like if you're writing a story or editing a film or something like that. Different parts and pieces that you put everything out there, you make sure it works, but then in the edit, you change things. So we might end up repeating this twice. We might just end up going through. And then on top of that now, it says harmonize in 4 parts, check for all these things we're going to talk about today, right? And that's the first time. But then it says, all right, well, how about harmonizing it in 3 parts instead? So it'll be soprano, alto, and then baritone, which is keep the basses in a range that both the basses and tenors can sing. So not too high, not too low, right? This is the classic. We only have 4 guys in the choir and we have 12 girls. And so we're gonna split 6, 6, and 4 like that. Also, it's a different color and texture, and it will make you think about, well, if I only have 3 voices, do I have all the notes of the chord all the time, or do I just keep part of it? How does that work? And you'll have some more information on how to do it again. okay, at the end of class, by the end of class. And on the third page, or well, second new page, third page, it's let's do this as alternating duets. So pay very close attention right here so I can explain this. What that means is the first measure will be, according to the stems, sopranos and basses, right? So they will go, and then the next measure will be the altos and the tenors answering them, okay? So you're gonna write this for two parts, but you have to think of it like this. This first measure here doesn't connect to the second measure. When you sing here, then you think about how does that connect to the third measure where the stems are up again, okay? And when you write your fourth measure, you think about how does that connect and is singable compared to the second measure. So I could have spliced these up and said just connect like first measure, third measure, fifth measure, etc. But that would make it not look like the same melody. So think of it like the tenor or the basses and sopranos sing, and then the altos and the tenors answer, and then sopranos come back in, and you just follow the stem direction. If it stems up, it's sopranos. If it stems down, it's altos. And like I said, you don't connect the first measure to the second measure. You connect the first measure to the third measure and to the next measure where the stems are up, and so on, right? This is a little more experimental. And you might, all of these, you may run into issues where you're not sure. That is fine. Just like drawing, just like anything else, we're not getting paralyzed with that. We're using our technique, which can always improve, but we're using it to get a bunch of stuff down. If you have a bad song, a badly rendered song, we can fix that. But if you have a, I got stuck and I just can't bring myself to write anything, then we can't fix it because there's nothing there. So just like you'll see in the video that I did, you know, I quickly went in and did all my methods for this, and then I went through back in the video and I, you know, fixed here and I fixed there, and I messed with a few different places and things like that, and I got much better. That means that I was able to slot in all the notes really quickly and then go back and make some changes, okay? Similarly here, do your very best to always check for spacing correctness, all the stuff we're going to learn about here in a minute, right? In 4 voices, in 3 voices, and then in this harmony duet thing. And you'll see actually it's not always that way. Like here it goes alternate, 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 and at the end it says let's go back to 4-part altogether. So it's like sort of a big thing at the end. And then here it's 2 measures for the all sopranos and 2 measures for the altos, and then measure, measure. And here it says, I know their stems up, but it says unison for the soprano and alto at the beginning. So you might have to run these parallel, right? And then as it opens up in range, it'll split off. Certainly you'd never leave the sopranos down here because sopranos as a section don't sound good below C very much. They get much weaker, and so we'd be doubling up with the altos, and then as we climb out we'd split. And so this will be a place for you to experiment with. You know, you always want right notes, you don't want obvious mistakes, but you want to get stuff down, right? And then we can fix it. Okay, so each of these, you know, I don't know if they're like 15 minutes. I mean, they're 16 measures per thing, but after you've done one, you'll do another one, and it'll be really similar. A lot of the work will be done for you. A lot of it will be exactly the same minus a voice. On the next one, it's a little different mentally, but you got all the chords down, you already understand. Once you have a pattern of something, it will continue on, I guess. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a minute, but in terms at the end, okay. But so first, there's that. Watch the video and get caught up to speed, okay. And just so you know, during the week, I'll start giving you some writing prompts for lyrics as well. So that's coming too, okay? I'm gonna quit the screen share, and I'm gonna come back to, let's see, I guess I'll unpin you guys, or I'll pin myself. Okay, so there could be a bunch of documents that you needed to download. And one of them is a checklist that that says something along the lines of error checklist or part writing guide. I guess I have to share screen one more time. Do you guys have that downloaded already? Printed? Maybe? In the announcement here. It says,
I think I printed off everything on the announcement.
okay, good, good. So we're looking here. How about you, Fatima? Did you get these guys right here in the announcement? Right here? Maybe you can't hear me. Here's the PDF of the writing thing we just went over. Here's the part writing error checking thing, and then a little exercise we can practice on. Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to refer to this, and I've done a summary of mostly what's in the text right now. I left spaces so you could take notes in between because let me show you. For instance, it says, hidden and direct us is the very last one. Perfect eggs or perfect fifths, and it's got you a page in the textbook so you can check there, right? It says if the bass and soprano move into a perfect octave or perfect fifth in similar motion and the soprano skip direct or hidden, perfect eighth or perfect fifth is created. That's a rule we don't want to break. We don't want those, right? But that doesn't, the textbook is good at defining that for you, but it gives you an example of it, but it doesn't show you how to find them. And so what we want to do is make sure you're clear on what it is today, and then talk about how we go about looking for them. The best way to sort of, scare up and make sure we can find them. Okay, so that being said, let's just sort of, I'm gonna, I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to not screen share, maybe, and go to the book. But the first thing it says is a bunch of stuff about melodies, and we're gonna skip this today. You can read through it, and in your textbook you can find it on page 67. It starts talking about it right there, and look at the examples. But melody writing is a separate skill. They cover it at the beginning to be thorough. But what we want to do is your examples are all going to give you melodies and things to begin with that are made for you already. We want to get good at finding errors. Okay, so error type 1, spacing, spelling, range, etc. Okay, so we've been over all that kind of stuff again. I want to talk about a couple specific things in there. So I'm going to get to my whiteboard here, and you can look at either the PDF on your own screen of this, or if you've got a printout, that's fine. I'm going to move away from it and go full screen on the whiteboard so that it's easier to see. Okay. But it says check your alto and tenor for spacing and cross voicing, and triads have to have a third and a root, and don't double tendency tones. This is the short list. There's a bunch of other things. So let me show you what that means. Okay, so when we say just general setup errors, I'm going to draw some funny sketches real quick. Okay, there we go. So here's my staff, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 1, 2, 4, 5. There's some basic errors that we know about, like we should have stems up and down in the right directions, right? And our spacing should be no more than an octave there and no more than an octave there. So if I use equal to or less than a perfect octave, equal to or less than a perfect octave, but this can be any distance, right? Any distance at all. And then we don't want to cross things over. Like we wouldn't want the altos above the sopranos or something like that. Those are basics that we know. Okay. So the one thing that can happen, and this is where it says check between your altos and your tenors, is this area right here creates a blind spot for us. It's really easy to tell where these are in relationship to each other and these are in relationship to each other, but it's really sometimes in the complexities of rhythms and lyrics and all that other stuff. and everything you're checking for, you lose track of these guys right here. And so sometimes what can happen is you'll get something like this right here. I'll put this at the end like this. And then just out of writing, you put the altos there and the tenors there and like that. And you'll be like, seems good to me, but these are actually crossing over. Now that seems pretty easy to see, but it's a little harder to see when there's more than an octave between them. So if I'm like this and this, and I don't know, let's put this guy up pretty high right there. Hold on. Let's do this. Make ourselves a jazz chord, B flat, F, G, and D. It's a nice sounding chord right there. It looks pretty good, but that's a ninth right there. So we want to check the alto and the tenor, especially for distance issues, whether they're crossing over or whether they've got more than an octave. More than an octave can be very hard to see sometimes, okay? So you should put an underline on that or a star beside it and just say, we have to pay attention to the middle two voices right there, okay? The next thing it says is you should always, chords need to have a root and a third. Okay, so, and then it says, don't double tendency tones. All right. So if I sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, you really, really want that to go to do, right? We want that to be the end. If you go like do, re, mi, re, do, and then you go ti, la, so, ti, re, fa. That fa really wants to resolve to mi, okay? And you know, that kind of thing. There's certain notes that have sounds, okay, that you go like, wow, that really wants to resolve, okay? So this comes to like I'm gonna switch to red just to break this up for a minute. So if you're watching the video, you can find this. So like when we write a chord, up till now we've been root and a root and a third and a fifth. And I would say this is, generally speaking, the most solid way to voice that chord, especially with root in the bass, right? Okay, it says, I am this chord, I'm doing this function, I'm that thing. But the truth is, you don't have to do that, okay? And when you watch the video, one of the things I'll say is it's more important to have smooth, singable, good lines than it is to what? To have like like every note of the chord present, right? So the real question is, what can I get away with? This is ideal for a big full sound, but what's the minimum we can get away with? And the answer is, you can get away with this and this, okay? Just this equals okay, okay? And then it comes to say, well, what can we double, right? What can we double? Like, what are we allowed to double? Up to now, we've been doubling the root, okay? And that's got some do's and some kind of could be okays. So here's what you want to do. You do double do, mi, maybe not mi, sorry, do, fa, and sol. Those are good to double because they represent the primary triads of the keys and the primary functions. So when you have these notes doubled in your chord, don't think of them as roots anymore, think of them as just scale degrees. They reinforce the key you're in, which is good, right? So if you think about, like we did a C chord, we went C, C, E, and G, and we're in the key of C, right? We doubled do right there. But it would also be fine to go C, C, or sorry, C, G, E, C. In this case, we're doubling that. It is in fact okay to double the third, but it's not as good a sound, in this case, because third is me. But everything here is, you know, do double this, okay? Others are okay. Not as good, but okay. And then don't double. Well, I'm going to put T and T for tendency tones. And that's defined as scale degree T, the seventh of a chord, if we have a chord that has a seventh on it, like a 5/7 chord, and fifth of a diminished triad. Okay, these ones all are super sensitive. They really want to resolve to another chord tone. And so we try and avoid them. So this is, I wish I could give you clearer rules. Basically, you can double anything in a chord, not just the root, so long as it's not T, seventh scale degree, it's not seventh of a chord, and it's not fifth of a chord that's a diminished triad, okay? And if you have a choice, go for smooth line. And then if you have a choice on top of that, do and fa and so, roots 1, 4, and 5 in the scale are better than others, but you really can double anything. And I think line supersedes all of those. Smoothness of line is best. Okay. Questions before I go on, because I'm going to go on and we're going to leave this. In a flow chart, think I can double anything, but not these three kinds of notes. Not T in the scale, not the seventh of a chord, and not fifth of the diminished triad. Okay. And I need to have a root and a third minimally for the sound to come through. And then after that, it's kind of goes smooth lines, but these are good choices right here. Okay. All right. We're going to come back to that again when you're writing. I'm going to erase this now. All right. Now, I think I am going to go to the textbook here to explain I guess we're going to talk about, on the second page, it says parallel perfect octaves and perfect fifths, consecutive perfect octaves and perfect fifths, unequal fifths, and direct hidden octaves and fifths. Okay, so go to the textbook, and I think I will, no, I don't have to screen share. All right, so let's, chapter 5. All right, so it says parallel motion. Parallel motion is when two notes move in exactly the same direction, exactly the same amount. If they don't move the same amount, then it's similar motion. Parallel motion is fine when it's fourths and thirds and things like this. But we have something called, let's see if I can move my camera here. This is awkward. We have something called objectionable parallels. It says results when two parts, that's like soprano and bass, soprano and tenor, soprano and alto, alto and tenor, alto and bass, or tenor and bass, that are separated by a perfect fifth or a perfect octave, okay, move to new pitches in another chord, right? And they have the same interval. So for instance, here, let's see, at the bottom, I have a chord set up 5 going to 1, and I have a perfect fifth right here between these two voices. And when they move to the next one, you'll find another perfect fifth right there. That's parallel perfect fifths. That's a very jarring sound. Let's see if I can turn around on the piano. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with that sound, except that it's not, the lines don't have very much independence. Okay, so yeah, okay. And same thing for octaves. If you have octaves doing this as well, like doesn't sound like two different lines, it just sounds like one compound line. It sort of puts a hole in the fabric of the sound. It sticks out, subtle at first, and then when you get good at hearing these things, it's really obnoxious. Okay, so we don't want two voices starting in an interval of a perfect octave and a perfect fifth, moving to another chord, and actually moving to another perfect octave or perfect fifth. And then the next category is, it says contrary or consecutive octaves. Contrary is another word that gets used. So here we have an A and an E, which is a 12th, but it's still a fifth. Like if you took this E and put it down there, then you'd find it's a fifth, right? And then it contracts into a fifth. 12ths, which is an octave in a fifth, and a fifth are exactly the same thing, okay? So we're not allowed to do that either, okay? It's the same effect. Your book likes to say consecutive or contrary fifths and octaves and parallel fifths and octaves. I look at them the same way. You can't have any pair of voices start in an octave and go to another octave, okay, whether they move in the same direction or opposite direction. Same thing for perfect fifths. And you'll see on the paper, it says that unisons count. Unisons count as octaves as well. It's the inversion of an octave, has the same qualities, okay? Now, here's where we're going to stop for a second and say, how do we find them? How do we find them? Let's see if I can find a example here. All right, so I'm over on the self-tests here, and it says at the bottom of page 79, hey, let's find an example of a parallel octave or a parallel fifth or contrary fifths, which is where it starts in a fifth and either contracts in or starts in a fifth and expands out, going in the opposite direction. So your book will tell you you have to check every pair of voices. Like this is not the example, but in a four-part thing, we'd have to check, get a pen. We'd have to check to see if this is a fifth, if that's a fifth, if that's a fifth, if this is a fifth, if that's a fifth, if this is an octave, if that's an octave, if that's an octave, if that's an octave, and that's an octave. And then when we find them, we have to see if they go on to the next one. And that's very thorough, but also very exhausting, okay? Here's how we check. We check by, we look for, hold on, look for root and fifth of the chord. And we look for doubled note, okay? Two of the same note. That's where you're gonna find these problems, okay? And you don't have to check every other pair. So if you're good at reading your score, then you'll be good at finding these. Let me show you what I mean here. I'm in the key of D. There's a D, an F sharp, and an A. It's a three-part texture. There are no doubled notes. So there won't be any parallel octaves because there's no octaves to be had there. But D, D is the root and A at the top is the fifth. That's the root and the fifth. That's a perfect fifth. Okay, triads have a root and a fifth making a perfect fifth. So I have to check the next pair of bass and soprano. There's my bass, there's my soprano. So this one up a step and that one up a step. This is also a perfect fifth. That is my number 2, objectionable parallel fifths. I didn't have to check every pair. I had to read the notes. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope so. It means reading chords becomes a useful skill. Let's look for number 1, which is parallel octaves. It means somewhere in here on these chord stacks, there's doubled notes, right? A note pitch and another one that's the same. And when we find that, we might find the parallel octave because that could be it right there. There's no doubled note here, D, F sharp A. There's no doubled note here, E, G, B. A, E, C, no doubled note there. D, F sharp, D. Here's a doubled note right there on the outer voices, right? So now let's take, since the soprano and bass, let's take a look at the next soprano and bass. It goes down a minor third to the B, it goes down a minor third to the B. That is parallel octaves, a pair of notes, the doubled note started in an octave, moved in parallel motion, and became another octave, and its problem in the sound, okay? So that's how we look for this. We look for root and fifth for the, for parallel fifths or consecutive fifths. And we look at doubled notes for repeated octaves or unisons as well. Okay. Now there's one caveat to this. If I have a root and I have a fifth right there, okay, like this, that's a perfect fifth, right? However, if I have the root up here and I have the fifth below it, that is a perfect fourth, and that's completely okay. You can do those forever. So one trick to get around that in your writing is to invert the root in the fifth so that it becomes a perfect fourth. Okay. So, and so when we say look for root and fifth, we're actually looking for root and fifth where the root is below the fifth, because then it makes a fifth right there. Okay. That will cover both of, let's see, both the parallel fifths and octaves and consecutive perfect octaves and perfect fifths. Here, we look for, let's see, can I annotate in here? I cannot, okay. We look for doubled notes and we look for roots underneath fifths. And then when we find them, we check the next pair of voices as well. We'll get a chance to do that very soon on the printout one that we did. Unequal fifths, well, let's leave that for now. I think we're going to leave that for now. We might leave it for the day. We'll come back to it. It happens very rarely, and it's important, but we'll get to there. Okay. Let's talk about hidden or direct fifths or octaves. This is one that again, it's defined, page 77 in your book. It says, I'm on page 77 at the top here, and it says, let's see, it says, when outer parts, that'd be bass and soprano, move in the same direction into a perfect fifth or octave, and the leap in the soprano part with a leap or step in the bass. Okay. Makes a that. Okay, well, that's fine. It's another mistake. It has similar kind of sound problems as the parallel octaves and parallel fifths. Okay, but it's more specific. It doesn't really tell you how to check for it. I'm going to show you. So here's what happens. If I have, now this is soprano and bass. So let's say I'm going from here to like this. I'm going from 1 to 2 like that. And my soprano does this. Okay. So this is a direct or a hidden, depends on the textbook. They call them, this perfect octave. And here's what it is. When your soprano and your bass have an R, perfect octave, right? And they moved in the same direction, okay? Similar motion, because they're not moving the same distance exactly, but they're moving in the same direction. And last step, the soprano skips to get there, right? So it happens here. It gets set up by approaching it in the same direction at, similar motion, and the soprano skipped to get there. This is a problem. Same thing for if it's jumping into a perfect fifth, okay? So that's good. And I don't know why, but people have a real hard time, students on average, understanding this, okay? If your soprano and your bass, don't worry about the other voices, are in a perfect octave, and they got there by moving in the same direction, right? Not parallel, but similar, because then it would be parallel octaves, right? And the soprano skipped to get there, then we have a problem. It's called hidden or direct perfect octave, perfect fifth, okay? Here's how we check for it. Number one, you could write this down. You scan, it's really easy, scan the soprano for skips, because this only happens if the soprano skips into the note, okay? And then, okay, after skip, check bass and soprano for perfect fifths or perfect octaves. Okay. 3, if bass moved in similar motion, meaning the same direction, right? Just not parallel, same direction, motion, then you're unhappy, okay? Then you have a perfect fifth. But it's 3 things. Scan the soprano, check and see the interval after you've arrived into that, skip for the perfect eight, check and see if the bass is also moving in the same direction. Now we'll give it the poison face too, left. Okay. There you go. Month and a half of drawing. That's what I got. Okay. Let's, because of time, go to our practice thing that we have. It's a page that you would have printed out. Okay. It looks like this. Okay. So in all exercises, you know, you can always cheat and not do things in the order that they ask you to do. But when you're checking your own writing for mistakes, you have to, you know, sort of have a logical way to do this. I'm going to go with easiest thing first. Okay. Easiest thing first. Okay. So the easiest thing here, let's see, parallel fifths, voice crossing, consecutive, perfect eighth, and a parallel octave. Direct proof that there's a whole bunch of problems here. Inappropriate doubling. It sounds like I'm at a church dance and I'm saying, you guys can't dance that close together. That's inappropriate. It's kind of funny. All right. And voice crossing. All right, let's try voice crossing. Number 2 and number 6. What that means is sopranos are below altos, or altos are below tenors, or tenors are below basses, right? And you can do this very easily first by scanning the 2 staves, all right? So here's what I want you to do. Get your microphones ready. And as I go along the top staff and I'm checking these, yell out stop when I find one where the altos are above the sopranos or the sopranos are above the altos. Here we go. This one, that 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 one. Now, either you're not there and you're watching YouTube or something, or you're attentive, but you didn't find one because it's not there. We get close, we have a unison, but they never cross over. Let's do the same thing for the bass line and the tenor line. It's easy to see, right? That one, 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 that one. The answer is none. Okay, which means that these crossing over of voices are going to be happening between the middle voices, which I told you is where you're going to find them because we get blind to them. They're not obvious. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to give you a minute and check your alto and tenor line and see if you've got them flipped upside down on each other. Okay. And I'll give you a sec. There's 2 of them, number 2 and number 6. That's not in any particular order. Just know that there's 2 instances. Okay. Are these 2 alto above?
Yes, those ones are wrong.
Yeah, you can see good. I can hear static and know somebody's cutting in there, right? So this right here, that's number 2. See how that works? Because B is below E. Now, you know, it's really funny when I stare at the score and not think about it too much, it doesn't bother me to see it like that because the big gap between the 2 stabs doesn't betray that right away, but it's a problem. Do you notice that when this happens, it sort of punishes us and makes us do the next one as well? Like if you're going smooth, you're going to end up with consecutive problems, but this F sharp is way up here, right? And so these guys are both below there, right? So I'd bracket that and I'd go number 6 right there. Boom, boom. You got to think of this like puzzle rather than drudgery. It's more like Sudoku rather than like, oh no, I got to do part writing, checking and stuff like that. All right, so there we go. Okay. The next easiest thing to do would be to look for direct octaves. We have 2 of them, okay? This is those hidden direct octaves that I just talked about. The reason why this is easy is because they only happen after the soprano has skipped, right? It's another reason to keep your melody smooth, okay? So if you think about this, remember, it happens when the soprano skips and arrives in a perfect octave or fifth, but in this case, we're looking for perfect octaves with the bass. So it can only happen after a skip. So here we go, ready? Here's a skip, we'll check here. No, 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 no. Here's a skip, we'll check here. Here's a skip, we'll check here. No, no. That means we've got 1 skip, 2 skips, 3 skips, and we've got 2 direct octaves that we're looking for according to this exercise. So 2 of these are going to give us what we want, okay? Let's take a look at the first one. It skips down. Now we found a skip, so we check this note with the bass, right? Are they the same note? Please say yes, please say yes, please say yes. Yeah, good, it is yes. D sharp and D sharp. So we have a skip in the soprano. These 2 notes are the same, so it's a perfect octave. Does the bass move in the same direction in similar motion? Same direction being down, similar being not parallel, but yeah, it does. We have a problem right here, right? It's right there, right? And this would be, I'll just call it number 4, right? So it's a problem. Now we scanned through and we found the next skip in the soprano is right here, right? It skips. Is this between the soprano and the bass an octave? Yep. Fatima, Abby's beating you to the punch there, but do you see that this is a skip and that's an octave right there between soprano and bass? Yep, okay, good. So, and then you see how the bass moves in similar motion, this time going up? This is also, there's my skip, there's my octave. This would be, so I already did this one right there, number 7, like that. Okay, and just for good measure, to see how this goes down and this one goes the opposite direction, so it can't be a direct or hidden octave. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, cool. We still have to look for parallel fifths, parallel and consecutive octaves, and chord that's missing a third, and inappropriate doubling. You know, we can do these in any order. Why don't we start with inappropriate doubling? Inappropriate doubling is when you have doubled a tendency tone, okay? All right, so tendency tones are T, or note number 7, right? 7th of a chord, okay? And 5th of a diminished chord. Now, I'm kind of lying to you. There are other tendency tones because there's all these kind of exotic chords out there that have them, but this gets you like 90, 93, 95% of the way, certainly an A, right? All right, so let's go through this. Are there any diminished chords here? Minor, major, minor, dominant, minor, 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 minor. Nope. So we're not going to have that. That's not a problem. Is there a chord with a 7th on it? Right there. What is the 7th of this chord? B, D sharp, F sharp, A. There's my 7th. There's no other 7th, so it's not that. Okay, so it's got to be doubled T, right? I'm in the key of E minor. What's T? Where will you find T? 5 chords, right? And 7 diminished, right? Because they have T in them. So here's T, D sharp, there's only 1. Here's T, D sharp, there's only 1. Here's T, and here's too much T. We're drowning in T, right? So here on this, we've made the unfortunate problem of doubling the leading tone note, which is a tendency tone. That's inappropriate doubling right there. Okay. It's like saying you can have a little bit of sugar in your porridge, but the moment you decide to put the whole sugar bowl in there, that's a problem, right? Too much. So I'm just going to circle this and say, look, number 5 right there. Okay. And that's how we look for that. Chord without a third. Well, now comes your chord reading and spelling and things, right? So let's think about this. Rather than going linearly through, let's just check every chord by spelling. One chords are E, G, B, and we're looking for that note right there to be missing, or we want it to be there. There it is right there, right? Typically, we should actually check all the spelling. Here's another one chord, G, B, B, E. Huh, well, there's bad figured bass for you right there, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. We're not checking that right now. But there's my G, that's fine. How about here? E, B, E, E. See, there's no G in that chord right there, right? Okay, so this is chord without third. That's number 8 right there. Okay, good. By the way, there's a lot of other mistakes in this. I just want to point out, like, these are the ones we're looking for, but I had fun back in the day just making a bunch of choral writing, being completely irresponsible and not like just making mistakes. Let me point out another mistake too that's very common. It's not in the list, but what's wrong with that chord right there? This is a mistake that students make again and again and again. Anybody figure that out? What's wrong with that chord? There's a C. Yeah, there's a C. Holy smokes. Whoever wrote this. Yeah, this is supposed to be EGB, right? And I have a C right there. Now, it's okay not to have the B because you just have to have a root and a third, but the C is just a wrong note, right? Okay. Also, this should be a 6/4, but we're not doing figured bass right now. That'll be a different exercise at a different time. Don't worry about that. Okay. Like there's figured bass missing from a lot of these. That's not an issue right now. Okay. All right. So now the last thing is parallel fifths and parallel octaves and consecutive perfect eighths and octaves. This is the one that makes people unhappy because they have to read notes and think about things in multiple clefs. And I get that, but you know, I'm gonna switch pens so we have a different color. Remember how you find these. You look for the doubled note and you look for roots and fifths with the root underneath the fifth, right? Okay, so let's go right here. E and E. Here's my doubled note right here. So I have to check the next pair. Is it also a doubled note? The answer is no, right? This one went down, that one went up, so that's not a problem. Here's my root, here's my fifth. Now, this fifth root is above that. We've already established that, so we don't have to check that one, but we do have to check right here, right? This is a root and this is a fifth. So if they go to another root and fifth, we're in trouble, but it goes down a half step and that one stays the same. So no problems here, okay? You find the root and the fifth with the root underneath, you find the doubled note. All right, so here we already know our doubled note is the D sharp, which was a problem, right? So I look there, it goes up, it goes down, not a problem anymore. The root of this chord is B, and the fifth is the F sharp, which is above it. And then it does something crazy. So it's not a parallel fifth, but it's really hard to sing because this has got score order incorrect, but we don't have a problem here. Let's check right here. All right, what's the doubled note? What's the doubled note? Anybody's? It's the C's, yes. And so we check, does it go to another doubled note? And the answer is no, we're good. Okay, what's my root and fifth? Well, this is an A chord. And so A is right there and then my E is right there. And that goes up and that one stays the same, so no problems. Whew, we haven't found one yet. This is perplexing. Here we go. We have no doubled note here because it's a 4-note chord, right? But we do have a root, which is my B, and we do have a fifth, which is my F sharp right there, right? Fifth like that, right? So we have root and fifth on the outer voices. Do they go to another fifth? A and E. I think they do. F sharp goes down to E, B goes down to A. I think we found our parallel fifths right there, which would be number 1. Okay, let's keep going. Whew, we've burnt an hour almost already. All right, so here's my doubled note right here, but it doesn't go to another doubled note. A to E is my root and fifth, right? Now this is, we have to be careful because there's 2 E's here. So we have to check the A to the alto, down a step, down a fourth. So that's not a problem. And we also have to check the A up to the soprano. That one holds over, so it can't be parallel motion either. So we're good there, okay? Here, and I'm gonna just sort of get us through here. Our doubled note is the B and the B right there, the B and the B. That one goes up, that one goes down. It's not another doubled note. This is supposed to be an E chord, and the E is above the B's, so they're fourths, not fifths. So we don't have to worry about that. We get to here, I have an A, an A, and an A. I have tripled notes. Wow, and a C, so no fifth here, right? Tripled roots, and so 3 roots and a third, which is fine, right? That's enough to tell us what the chord is, and you know, if these lines were smoother, I wish, well, I guess these are okay, but all right. So let's check this pair right here. This is an octave, and it goes to a unison. Unisons and octaves are the same thing, right? This is number 8 right there, or no, I'm sorry, 3, 3, right? The consecutive octave, the one that's going in opposite direction, okay? But there's another one somewhere, so we continue to check here. If I have this A and that one goes down to an E, that's also another pair that goes to another note that's the same. And then if I have this A and this A, they're going in the same direction, and that's my parallel version of it right there, right? All of those guys right there. It's a mess. Okay, usually what happens is like one little mistake is not what's going to happen. It's going to be a ton of mistakes that all sort of collide there. All right. Oh, we got our inappropriate doubling. I should mark that off. Nah, we're done. All right. This is sort of a game format because it's got a limited number of mistakes you're looking for, but it's made for us to think about how do we look at these things. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take you back to the writing project. Okay. So let's share screen and let's go to desktop. And we're back to this writing project here. All right. So what I would like you to do today is just do the first of these 3 right here. It says harmonize in 4 parts and check for things. Now I already started you off here. Okay. But you see how although I'm going down to a third here to the A minor chord, right? I can't do super common tone because super common tone would have been root goes down to root, and then the common tones hold over, which would have been these 2 notes. They should have held over, right? But the soprano skipped down there, right? That's no good, okay? And then this would have moved up by step. Okay, let me just start you off and show you a couple things here. I think I'm going to transfer this to staff paper so that you can see it in real time. Okay, and I will. Yeah, I think we'll just drop this now. Okay, so let me set this up to begin with. We were here, and we had bum bum bum, and da, da. And I think this was an E and a C, right? Okay. And the next thing that happened is we go to an A minor chord and the melody goes to there, which precludes us from doing super common tone. Okay. So let's just see what happens if we do as much super common tone as possible. Okay. So this goes root, root, root like this. Okay. This would go up to the A like that. Okay. And this would have held on to the C as common tone. Right? So do you see how I did super common tone as much as I could? Right? The melody didn't do so hot, but everything else, like I went root to root, and then I held my common tone over, even if this one didn't. And then this one would have to go there because normally they have like an E and a C and an A and an A, right? Is this okay? Well, let's check it for a couple things. Does this have a root and a third? Did I cross a voice? Are there any tendency tones? That's the first thing. Let's check it. The answer is A's and C's are roots and thirds, so that's fine. Okay. Did any of the voices cross over? They did not. C's are above the A's right here, and soprano and altos are on the same note. So we're good there. Are there any tendency tones in this chord? Is this a diminished chord? No. Does this have T in it? No. Is this a seventh chord and has a seventh? The answer is no. So we're good there. All right. Now we have to check for parallel fifths and octaves, well, consecutive ones, and hidden / direct fifths and octaves. All right, let's check them out. So first off, here's a skip, right? So we're going to do the hidden one right here. There's a skip, okay? The bass is moving in the same direction, but is this an octave right here? And the answer is no, it is not an octave. This is a 10th, right? So nope, we don't have any problems with that. Is there parallel fifths? Okay, so let's just check this out here. What's the doubled note here? The doubled note is the C, right? Do they end up in another doubled note? No. Good, so no parallel octaves. What's my root and my fifth? My root is here, my fifth is there. Do they end up in another root and fifth? And the answer is no, the fifth went to an octave, which is different. So the answer is we're good there. Now, it might have been tempting for you, and I want to show you this, and then I'll kind of leave you, to put these guys down there like that, right? Because then you go, oh, root, third, fifth, I got a complete chord, right? But then I have a fifth here and a fifth there, and that's parallel fifths right there. Okay, so this checklist that I gave you, check for at least a root and a third, check for cross voicing, check for tendency tones, make sure your ranges are good, make sure the lines are particularly smooth, right? That's the thing we need. And then we have to avoid these problems right there. Okay, and you check for them by, again, hidden ones, check for a skip, and then see if it's an octave between soprano and bass and see if the bass went in the same direction. Got to have all three parts, otherwise it's okay. But if you have all three parts, that's bad, right? And then check your doubled note and see if it goes to another doubled note, because that would be parallel or consecutive octaves. And then check your root and fifth, every instance of it where the root is below the fifth. This one's okay, it's a fourth. And make sure you don't have another same fifth when you go there. And if you do, you'll have to like go, well, I got to go back and change things. Okay. So have a whack at the first one of these. Okay. Not the other ones. Right. Because, well, you know, because I will make a video going over this like I did the last one, and we'll compare notes. You may find that when you get to here, okay, it becomes really difficult because of range. remember what we did before with these non-chord tones between here? We just ignored them, right? So from here to here, this might be like a 7th chord. I don't know. I have to think of it like that. You might have to make some things work here, but here, if I'm going from F down to A, I'm either going to move with soprano or contrary motion voice exchange, and I'm going to ignore that being there. Now, that doesn't mean we'll end up there at the end permanently, but just start by putting it in there and getting it done. Here may just be an issue, and I'll deal with that in the video. So maybe just go to here, right? Ignore the last 4 measures. You can give a try at it, but it might take some working out because of the low range of the sopranos. So don't worry about that, okay? Do your work, make the checks happen so you're practicing not getting accidents, okay? All right, and then I'll publish a video for that. That's it. That's all I got for today. I mean, that's a full hour and 5 minutes of our class. I hope that that was useful for you. I hope that that made you go like, oh, real writing. It's going to be good. All right. And I'll let you go. I actually have another student coming on in like any minute now. So, so if something from today's work is not working for you, you've got 2 strategies. Get through it and then watch the review video and see, learn from that, finish the work, or email me a question or a request to go over something in person, and I'll make some time for that too. Okay. You should be excited. This is so excellent. Becoming competent writers. All right, I will let you guys go then.